One of the objectives of the Partnership for Environmental Education and Rural Health that's funded by the National Institute of Environmental Health Science that we have here is to have scientists to visit the classrooms and to interact with the public schools. Since there's so many public schools, we can't reach them all. We came up with the idea of having virtual scientist interviews. And so therefore we would interview scientists from various places, and we're happy to have you today to do that.
I'm happy to be here.
So we are interviewing today Dr. Ken Olden. He is the director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science. He's also the director of the National Toxicology Program. He is the third director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science. He's the first African American to become a director of the 18 institutes of the National Institute of Health Science. He is a biologist and a biochemist and works on cell surface molecules as they may relate to cancer. He is a member of the Institute of Medicine for the National Academy of Science. Welcome, Dr. Olden. This is, I'm Larry Johnson, and this is Bill Clem. He is the co-PI of our project. So we'd like to ask you some general questions about how your interest was in science whenever you were a kid. Some people think that the kind of schools people go to influence their success in life. What kind of schools did you go to as a youngster?
Not very good schools. I grew up in Tennessee in the 50s, and went, actually, my first year of college was 1960. So I went 8 years in a one-room school back in the rural area, and we had one teacher who handled all 8 grades. So you can imagine the time and attention was devoted to any of us. And then when I went to high school, the area high school, and all of these schools were segregated through the 60s in Tennessee. So the quality of the education was not very good. And I think the fact that a few people that did survive in college after that was more of a testament to their hard work and tenacity than to the quality of education that they had. But I went to a historical black college, Knoxville College, and I'd say it was appropriate for kids like me who came from a rural background, had received a pretty fairly poor education. So it gave us the opportunity, though, to, in a sense, catch up, to take remedial courses, and that probably would not have happened had I gone to the University of Tennessee. So I think, at least in those days, historical black colleges and universities had a very important mission, and I think to do that, and maybe even today, that's also still an important mission that these institutions have. There's still a lot of not just poor minority kids like African Americans, but there are a lot of low-income Caucasians, for example, who need an opportunity, first-generation educated, and maybe some of these colleges that have experience in how to educate kids like I was is important. So no, I did not have a very good education, but I was committed and dedicated and was not going to be denied, so I was willing to work hard enough to succeed. And I think that is what you have to decide, and you have to make that decision early on.
Where did you get that dedication and commitment? Were your parents responsible for instilling in you a desire to learn or anything like that?
That's exactly correct. My father was a farmer, but I learned from my parents the value of hard work, of commitment, and they instilled in me the principle that I wanted to be somebody, and I wanted to make a difference. And my parents told us, made it very clear that nobody was going to give that to you, and if you really wanted it, you had to go out and work for it for yourself. So my parents instilled pride, work ethics, and those are and good people skills. So I think and those are the values that I think are responsible for my being where I am today.
Did you like science whenever you were a student in school? In
Yes,
public
I did.
school?
I liked every course. I'm a person today, I like learning. Anything I don't know, I just love learning. Art, I loved art. I loved all of my courses. I loved languages, history, but I also love science, but I could have, in terms of interest, could go on in many areas. I like
As you know, in your time there were kids who did not like school, and that's certainly true today. What can you say to kids like that who don't like school?
Well, I think education is important, and no matter what you want to do with your life, I think it's absolutely important to have a good education. Now, whether that does not necessarily mean a college education, but I think you have to learn how to read and write and communicate and handle your own affairs, and I think also to appreciate the beauty of the world and all that the world has to offer. I think an education is required for that. So I have a son who is interested in music as a performer, and he had a business even when he was in high school. But we encouraged him to go to college and get a college education because he had the opportunity, and he did so, even though I guess it wasn't essential for what he was going to do. But I think it broadened his life. I think he appreciates the world in a different way, and he is in business. So it is important so he can manage his own business affairs and make sure that he's not being taken advantage of and so forth.
Well, you have many interests. You could have gone in various fields. Why did you choose science? When did you first become interested in being a scientist?
Well, I think growing up in the rural South when I did, and it's not changed a lot even today, but a bit because of programs like yours, I didn't know of minorities in this case. I didn't know of black people doing many things, and of course we all are shaped by our early experiences. And so in my hometown, I had only seen black professionals in really three capacities, and that's as ministers of churches, preachers, teachers, and there was one black physician. And I decided that I wanted to be a physician, although I was also interested in the ministry. So as an undergraduate student, I was a double major. I studied religion as well as science. And in fact, my last year at college, I applied for a Rockefeller fellowship to go to the divinity school and the science in the same time. So I was just based on role models. I didn't know anything else, other profession. So I didn't know black lawyers and business people, and so I was kind of copying my community. So I decided to go in medicine. But my senior year in college, I had an opportunity to go to the University of Tennessee to participate in a research program. It was that experience that turned me around. I realized I liked it. I thought I could spend the rest of my life doing something that I would enjoy. And also I thought it was eminently important because I didn't know any blacks in biomedical research. And all of my time at the University of Tennessee, none of the seminar speakers, no one ever came through of my ethnic group, racial group, to give seminars. So I got turned on by science and thought if I could be successful, it would be an important contribution not only to my community but to the nation, that a kid from my background and racial group could become a contributing member of society as a scientist.
Great. How about teaching and outreach activities that you've done to contribute knowledge for the next generation? Or
right. Well, I think it's important to give back. So I want to make certain that a lot of kids that come along after it, that now that I can influence, that I actually support programs that reach into communities like my own, for example, that I grew up in. And so kids will know what the opportunities are in my particular area, which happens to be biomedical research. And I think it's also important, certainly for minority kids and socioeconomically disadvantaged kids, to realize that it's important to be in all aspects of the health care delivery. And I think when I started out, I was thinking only of being a physician. But part of healthcare delivery is figuring out, developing those cures, those prevention strategies. And so it's important to be in all phases of healthcare delivery. And I think a lot of particularly poor kids and racial and ethnic minorities, they focus only on the dispensing end, and that is the practice of medicine. But there is the public health aspect of it. There is the research aspect, and all of those are important. So I want to make sure that kids make important decisions based on information. And I think the best way to do that is through the kind of program that you're having here, is talk about the options and the alternatives and exciting things to do other than to practice medicine.
We've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, that there are a lot of kids with abilities who don't have much confidence in their abilities. They don't think they're smart enough to be a scientist, for instance.
Right.
What do you say about that?
Well, I think high IQ is over emphasized in biomedical research. As a scientist, I think you have to have an average IQ, and I would say seems like most of the people I've encountered in this business have been average IQs. But they are willing to sharpen, hone those instincts and work hard, and that's what it really takes. I think if you have an average IQ, willing to work hard, but I think working hard, you have to work hard to succeed in any business. So people are successful no matter what they do. They work hard, and science is no exception. So I think if you're dedicated, you enjoy it. I think the key is enjoying what you do. And if you're enjoying, it's not hard work, and it's not work actually, it's fun. So I think that's the key.
Along those same lines, what words of wisdom would you give youngsters in the middle school?
Well, I think pretty much what I said. I think kind of is to decide what is it that you really like to do, and make that decision early on, and you can make you can make a living doing what you want to do, and I think there is nothing better. There's no greater enjoyment in life than to be able to get up every morning, since at least most of us have to go to work, and go off and do a job that you absolutely enjoy, and one that you think is making an important contribution to society. And so life has meaning. And so I think if you put meaning in your life through whatever you choose to do with it as a profession, I think that's what's really important. So I think making the decision, that's what's important. Thank you.
Great. Scientists also like to have fun. What are some of the things you like to do in your spare time?
Well, I do. I like to, as I indicated, I grew up in the South on a farm, so obviously I love nature. So I do my best to get back there as often as possible. So I like working outside and I grew up working with my hands. And I like working with my hands. So I work around the house, the yard, outside with trees and plants. I like to do that. I like to hike out in the mountains, cycle out in the rural areas. So I like outdoor active kind of activities. And I'm an avid reader. I love to read. So I would, but I'm not a couch potato. So I like doing things. I'm an activist. I have a lot of energy. But all of my activities are related to nature. I like fishing. I like the activities that will allow me to kind of rejuvenate myself and psychologically and mentally, get away from the pressures that we are faced with on a day-to-day basis.
As a cell biologist, what does a cell biologist mean? What does that mean to you? What would you tell a kid?
It's changed a lot. A study of the cell, but and its organelles, but it's basically has boiled down pretty much to molecular biology. Almost everything has, and but I think when we were trained, we were trained as reductionists, and I think it's very important to while we may work and figure out the riddles of life through molecules, it's important to take the cell and realize the cell is part of a tissue, and a tissue is part of an organ system, and eventually organs make up a whole organism like man. So I'm really more interested in the operation of the whole organism, and I guess we now call that physiology or systems biology. So, and I think to the extent that we can, it's really important to move from the molecule to the cell, to the tissue, to ultimately to the organism, because that's what we're trying to deal with in terms of preventing and curing diseases.
How did you become interested in cell surface molecules?
Well, my research interest is in cancer, and I think from the time that I guess I've always been interested in, since probably 1970, in some aspect of membrane biology. And I used to, early on in my career, I worked on membrane transport mechanisms, but I began to read and realize that that was kind of the beginning of the exciting area of cancer biology, that some of changes in membrane surfaces played a very important role in the pathogenesis of cancers, for example, metastasis and invasion. And so our interest was to develop and understand how cancer cells spread, and that led me to look at one membrane protein that called fibronectin, that is a glycoprotein, and and I'm still working on those aspects. Although when I started in the 70s, we thought that fibronectin was just a glue-like protein, and now we know that it is a membrane signaling protein, and the signals go both ways, from inside to out and out to in, and so we're now trying to elucidate the signaling pathways, and that's very important in growth and metastasis, normal growth and development.
What have you discovered or published? I see that you were one time one of the 100 most cited scientists. What was that paper about?
Well, we were the 100 most cited scientists for two papers. One was on fibronectin, and the other one was, as I mentioned earlier, it was a demonstration that you did not need the carbohydrate group on a protein to get it secreted or exported from the cell. There was a kind of accepted dogma in the field in the early to mid-70s that a carbohydrate group is put on a protein to serve as a destination marker, like a zip code, to get it outside the cell. In other words, all the proteins that were either in the cell surface or secreted into, outside the cell, that they had carbohydrate groups on them, and you had to have those carbohydrate groups on them. Well, and that came from, was never demonstrated experimentally, but George Pilati, who won the Nobel Prize in the early 70s, postulated that in his Nobel Prize speech. And people, since it was George Pilati, took it as dogma, and it became dogma. And we demonstrated in a paper in 1978 that you could completely prevent the glycosylation of a major protein. And fibronectin is a huge percentage. It makes up about 5% of the cell surface protein. So it's large. It's a large fraction. But that protein could be exported without having a carbohydrate group on it. And so that was that really changed the dogma in the field. And that was subsequently confirmed. And so that was the paper that I'm most excited about. That got so it changed the direction of the field.
Great.
You, of course, are director of a major federal agency. Do you have time these days to do research too?
Well, yes, I have a laboratory, and interested.
What kinds of things are you doing there?
Interested that you should ask about that. Here at the NIH, we have to undergo peer review. We have a board of scientific counselors that come in, scientists like you, to look at our work and to judge, is it good enough to be supported, just the way you have to do to get a grant. So we have to go through that review every 4 years. It will occur in about on April the 2nd or 3rd. So as I indicated earlier, I am working on signal transduction mechanisms and why they are important and how they regulate cell biology. And I'm concerned about cancer cells. So we're looking at transmembrane signaling and how that's important in metastasis and we're trying to use the knowledge that we gain from these studies to develop a molecular mechanism of eliminating micrometastases, these growths that are yet not detectable in tissues. And if you could eliminate those, you could prevent death from most cancers. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I guess we have about 10 minutes left, so we want to ask you, related to the NIEHS's areas of emphasis, how did you determine what areas are important to be pursuing both for research and also for outreach?
Well, we have a variety of mechanisms to outreach, first of all, to the scientific community, to find out where are these scientific opportunities, and then we ask, what role does the environment play in whatever it is we're looking at, because our mission is to look at the role of the environment in the development or etiology of human diseases. So if the environment is playing a role in the development of that disease, for example, cancer, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, then it is appropriate for us to look at that. And so we engage the scientific community to ask, where are the scientific opportunities? Do we know enough to develop a robust, vigorous research program in this area? That's one way. The other way is we outreach to the American people. We have town meetings around the country. We have brainstorming sessions. So we just had a town meeting, for example, in Miami, Florida. And so we go around the country. Sometimes we'll have anywhere from 200 to 300, 400 people in a town meeting, and these are lay people like my parents who are farmers or whatever. And the questions we ask is, what should an agency like ours be doing for you, the American people? And what are your concerns about the environment and your health? And people can tell you that. And so we factor in so we do information gathering using a variety of approaches, and then I bring that back here and I sit down with my senior staff and we try to determine, we have a limited amount of money, what are the important opportunities, what is it that the American people want us to do with their dollars, and that's how we set priorities.
Okay. The Environmental Health Science Institute was the first one that started with K-12 program. Why did you get interested in that? Why did you see that as something you should be pursuing?
Well, I think it's really important to get youngsters excited and turned on about science early on. And I think the environment is a hook. If you went in and talking about what I work on in my laboratory, cancer cells and signals transduction and adhesion, excited, but you're hardly going to get 12 or 13-year-old or even younger excited about it. But all kids relate to their environment, and I think you can use the environment as a hook to get them excited about. In other words, there's things that they can do on a day-to-day basis where they live, in their homes, in their communities, that can make a difference in the quality of life, and not only of humans, but of other plant and animal species. And so I think it's important to get people to understand that interrelationship between human life and the life of other plant and animal species, and how that is even a synergistic kind of relationship. We need plants. We need the other organisms. And so I just think it's the right time, because if you don't get kids excited about science early on, and it's too late. So I think having good, exciting, enthusiastic teachers is so important. And even if people don't go on to become scientists, I think it's important to have an educated population, to be members of Congress, to be school teachers, to be bus drivers, to be parents. And because ultimately, the way that the biomedical research enterprise is going to be supported is through public. The public has to be involved, to be interested, and to say to their elected delegation, Congress persons, that I want this support. It's important to me. It's important to my family, my community.
Why do you think that there's an emphasis now in science on gene-environment interactions?
Well, it's interesting. I would say for the past 25 years, the biomedical research enterprise has had a genocentric view. In other words, if once we understand genetics, that we will have solved the riddle of human disease. Well, we now have cloned the human genome. We've identified 35,000 or so genes, and we still haven't solved the riddle of human diseases. As a matter of fact, we haven't found the causes, genetic causes, of most diseases. So I think now people do realize something that we've been saying for years, that human diseases are caused by genetics, environment, and behavior. And it's the interaction of the three that's important in the development of human diseases, not one or the other. And we will not be able to prevent and probably cure or prevent diseases until we understand that interaction. So now I think people do realize that it's gene, environment, interaction with behavior as a function of your age or stage of development. And when we begin to factor in such complex models, and we can, we will then begin to develop effective prevention and treatment strategies. And until we do that, my prediction is we're not going to make a lot of a headway. And we have not. And so I think that's what it's about. People now realize that we do want to solve the riddle of human disease, but it's going to take looking at gene-environment interaction.
So I guess you'd say there's still lots of opportunity for young people who want to go into scientific research.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would say we've had fun, but I think the kids of the future, young people, are really the ones going to have the fun, because now we have very powerful technologies that were developed as a consequence of our focus on genomics that's going to allow us to answer some of these very exciting breakthrough questions. So I think the exciting period in biomedical research is still ahead of us. And I wish I was younger, that I could participate in a different kind of way. But the excitement is still out there. So next 20, 25 years, boy, it's going to be a wonderful time to be in biomedical research.
We want to thank you